7, it can feel like barely a day goes by without another headline about the economy, and for the past few years, those headlines haven't exactly been upbeat. But the good news is New Zealand does look like it's starting to turn a corner, with some early signs that the worst may be behind us. To help us make sense of it all, we're joined by Robbie Urquhart, Senior Portfolio Manager for Australian Equities at Fisher Funds. Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, outside of agri, the New Zealand economy has been doing it pretty tough. Have we turned a corner? Are we seeing those signs?
Well, I think this topic really builds nicely on that piece that Jack Tamey had on TVNZ the other night about the New Zealand economy.
Yes.
And from a market's perspective, it really does feel as if the worst is behind us and we're in the process of turning around from an economic standpoint. A lot of work has gone into turning the economy around. We've had the Reserve Bank of New Zealand, for example, cut interest rates from 5.5% at the peak to 2.25% after yesterday's cut. And that's a big move down in interest rates. It reduces the amount of interest that people with mortgages have to pay on those mortgages. It puts more money in their pockets to spend elsewhere in the economy and help kickstart that economic activity. Now, those sorts of remedies take a bit of time to roll through, but we are seeing increasing signs that that the economy is getting on a better footing. Not least of which is just in the share market. The market share prices of domestic-facing companies, whether it's Briscoe's in retail or Port of Tauranga or Mainfreight and Logistics, we've seen those share prices edge higher, which suggests that things are getting a bit better. Investor interest has been peaked as well. I was in Sydney for an investing conference a couple of weeks ago, and I was just getting pinged at the conference by a whole bunch of Aussie fund managers wanting to know whether New Zealand was turning around and how they might express that from an investing standpoint.
Okay, interesting. I was going to ask you next, is there a lot of international interest in New Zealand as an investment destination?
Yeah, absolutely. International investor interest in or trust in New Zealand is high. We've got strong institutions and good rule of law, so any sniff of a turnaround and optimism and investors will come flooding in.
Okay. What sort of Christmas cheer is there ahead for the New Zealand economy? Don't mean for you to play Santa this morning, but is there some good news on the way?
I think there is some good news on the way, and if not at Christmas specifically, over the next 12 months, I think the outlook is looking a lot better than it was 12 months ago. But from an investing standpoint, it is important to, we think, separate what's happening in the underlying economy with what you do from an investing perspective, and specifically when it comes to the share market. And that's primarily because markets are forward-looking. So often, if you wait for the turn to come in before you invest, the markets will have already moved. And then secondly, on the NZX, some of our largest companies, the likes of Fisher & Paykel Healthcare or Infratil, for example, derive most of their revenues from international markets. So what happens internationally is of more relevance to them than what's necessarily happening domestically. So from an investing standpoint, for people wanting to make the most of their money, we think it's more important than trying to time your investments with a turn in the economy, but rather to put in place an investing framework to govern your investing decisions. And over the long run, that will provide you with better outcomes than trying to chop in and out of markets. It
feels like for a long time now, it has been a very doom and gloom, hasn't it? So actually, how much of a relief is it to yourself and to others that actually the outlook is slightly better now?
Oh, no, it's great relief, and it's good to see companies starting to speak more constructively and optimistically about growth and about the future. If I think of the way we invest, we focus on investing behind businesses that are in good competitive positions, are well run, but importantly have earnings growth runways in front of them. And to see companies talking about growth again, both here and in Australia, which is where my focus is, it's great to see.
Well, hopefully for the economy, a very Merry Christmas indeed. Robbie Urquhart, Senior Portfolio Manager for Australian Equities. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.